All right, lighting. This is the trickiest part of photographing a footwear impression. The lighting is the trickiest part. Because remember, footwear impressions, in order to capture the three-dimensionality of the impression, we need what in the photo? Shadows. Shadows. So, having said that, what is the worst time of the day?
Noon.
Noon. That's the worst time of the day to photograph footwear impressions. So let's imagine that you are, maybe there's a body that was found out in the middle of the desert. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, right, the remains of Jesse, what's his last name? What's that?
Wilson.
Jesse Wilson, the young little boy from Buckeye. His remains were found, right? So let's say you've responded to that crime scene, and you're out there at noon, and as you guys are processing the scene, collecting the remains of Jesse Wilson, let's say that there are some boot prints found in the dirt or sand next to the body. Well, if it's noon, is that a good time of day to photograph those? No, so what would you do? All right. Well, you have to use a flash to create shadows, but the problem is, if it's at noon, that flash is not going to provide very much light because otherwise it'd be overexposed.
You're going to have to create some shaders, a large shadow area that you can use.
So one option is to do exactly what you guys said, which is to create shade. What's an even better option? Wait. Just wait. If you're in a situation where you can wait to photograph that impression until you have better lighting, then do that. So, yeah, there's other things that can be going on. What we can do is we can mark the impression. We can bring that to the attention of all the other investigators present at the scene, saying, we have a footwear impression here, we're going to photograph it, we're going to wait though. You can even take a box and put it over top of it if you want. Put a cone next to it, several flags saying, please don't touch this. But if you can do it, wait. What are the two best times of day to photograph impressions?
Early morning.
Sunrise, sunset. When the sun is low on the horizon, those are the two best days, because that's when you get your best shadows. That's when you have some sunlight, you get long shadows, but also it allows you to use your flash. Because when we do take photographs of impressions, really, we don't want to use available light, we want to use our flash. Because remember, a flash allows us to control the shadows. We can control the angles, we can control the amount of light, so the degree of shadow. We really want to use our flash. So impressions really should be photographed in low light. Now, what if you can't wait? We're going to do what you guys said, which is create some shadows, create some shade. So it's not uncommon at a lot of crime scenes, especially here in Arizona, because it's so hot. Most crime scene units have those pop-ups, you know, that people take with them to like sporting events and things. So take that pop-up, put it over top of the impression, but then drop it way low. So that it's sitting over top of the impression so that you can decrease the amount of light as much as possible. By the way, just holding an umbrella above it, not going to work. Because there's too much ambient light, you're just not going to get the shadows that you want. So you need to get it as dark as possible. One of the things that I would keep in my crime scene kit is a big, heavy blanket. Because one of the things you can do, think about it, you got the camera set up on the tripod, I'm going to be sitting over top of it like this, I can actually take the big blanket and drape it over top of myself. And make like a big, like human igloo, right? Yes, it would suck in July. So when in doubt, when you can, wait. But there are other ways if you need to. All right, again, we want to use the flash as our main light source, as our primary light source. Now, what setting do you think we want the flash on? We're going to use the flash in auto mode. Auto mode. We're going to allow the flash to use its own light meter to adjust the light hitting the impression. So we're going to use the flash in auto mode. So because we're using the flash, what shutter speed are we going to use on the camera? The sync speed. Make sure we set the flash at the sync speed. And in terms of aperture, a middle-of-the-road aperture, something around 8 or 11 will work just fine. Again, we don't need massive depth of field because the impression is probably only about an inch or two deep. So we don't have to worry about getting a lot of depth of field, so we don't have to close the aperture down to f22, for example. f8 or f11 is going to be totally fine. Okay. Alright, so use off-camera flash. So we are going to use the flash. So we're going to use our flash. Are we going to use the little built-in flash on top of the camera? So if I turn the camera on,
No.
am I going to use this little pop-up flash?
No.
Well, why not?
Because it depends on your detail.
Yeah. The same reason I'm not going to take a photo at noon is the same reason I wouldn't use this pop-up flash on top of the camera. The reason we don't want the sun at noon is if the light's coming straight down, there's no shadows. If I'm using this little pop-up flash on top of the camera and the light from the flash is going straight down, I've got no shadows. So I don't want to use the pop-up flash, so instead I could use my off-camera flash, right? Now, with my off-camera flash, do I want to mount it on top of the camera like so?
No.
Now again, same reason. I don't want the light going straight down because again, I'm going to get no shadows. So I'm going to take my external flash and I'm going to use it off the camera. And to do so, I'm going to need my sync cord, right? So I'm going to attach my flash to my sync cord. I'm going to attach the other end of the flash to the hot shoe on top of the camera. And that's going to allow me then to move the flash. So although the camera is perpendicular, although the camera is at a 90-degree angle, I don't want the flash at a 90-degree angle. I want the flash off to the side. I want to use what's called oblique lighting. Oblique means from the side. So I want to use the flash with the light coming in at an angle less than 90 degrees. 90 degrees again would be straight up and down. I want an angle something down here, something at maybe 45 degrees. Or maybe a little higher, maybe up at 60 degrees. Or maybe I might even need to hold it really low, way down here at what would be maybe 15 degrees.
So there would be a reason for that.
Okay, what would influence my decision as to whether or not, because in some cases, I might need to hold the flash up high. In other cases, I may need to hold the flash way down low. What variable is going to influence that decision? The depth of the impression is exactly right. Write this in your notes. The deeper the impression, the higher the angle needs to be for your flash. So the deeper the impression is, like a 6-inch impression versus, let's say, one that's only a centimeter deep. So if I have a really deep impression, so imagine up in Flagstaff, someone's walking around, they're stomping through some deep snow. So now we have these deep impressions in the snow. If you have a really deep impression in the snow, and you were holding the flash way, way, way down low like this, the light's not actually going to get down into the impression. So you would need to, in that situation, hold the flash up higher. If, however, you have a really shallow impression, which here in Phoenix, that's what we get mainly. You're talking impressions that are less than a half-inch deep. Think about someone stepping in some dust, or stepping in some loose sand, or gravel. Your shoe only sinks down in just a little bit. Now, if it's mud, okay, now you might get an impression that's 2 inches deep. But most of the impressions we have here in Phoenix are shallower, an inch or less. In that situation, I'm going to hold the flash not up high, not here at 60 degrees. I'm going to probably hold it way, way down low at around 10 degrees. How do you figure it out? How do you test it? That's why you have a flashlight. Before I photograph the impression, I'm going to take out my flashlight, and I'm going to shine my flashlight down on my impression, and then I'm going to move it up or down until I see the best detail. If I hold my flashlight at this angle, which is about 45 degrees, and I see the most detail, well, that's where I'm going to hold the flash. On the other hand, if I hold the flashlight really low and I can see more detail at a lower angle, well, now I know that's the best place to hold the light. So use your flashlight as a tool to figure out the best angle. But in general, we know this. The shallower the depth of the impression, the lower the angle. The deeper the impression, the higher the angle needs to be. So if you're taking a photograph in deep snow, 60-degree angle, which is fairly high, is going to be a lot better than the 10-degree angle, which is really low. All right, so far so good? Again, we said flash in auto mode, camera manual mode, camera set to the sync speed for shutter speed, and again, aperture somewhere around f8 or f11.